Action. Talking about
right.
Talking about a masculine frame, and one thing that stood out from what you shared, the context of the feminine is all of it, not just your feminine partner.
Right.
How you feel about, how you respond to, and so I've seen it that frame control occurs to me as how grounded are you when you're feminine, even you're in your feels about whatever.
Exactly.
And you need to stay grounded, because that experience, the dancing with my partner, is what I've come to appreciate. The test to myself of I'm in my feels about something, and staying level-headed, staying intentional. One, keeping it to myself, not in hiding it, processing it, actually figuring out what it is that I feel.
You're my feelings.
Right? That's not the space. That's not the direction. Like, I need to file a complaint. I don't even know why they said that shit. That's just not how it works.
You're my feelings.
It made me feel like. So, in doing that, taking myself on first and foremost, just looking at, okay, what, and you said it perfectly, how I'm attached to where you show up, X, or where whatever shows up in life, X. I love that, because that's just such the truth. Where do you show up to the discipline, the grounding, the what you said was going to happen? Fuck how you feel about it. What happened, what my experience was in gathering was, especially speaking to my partner, was her coming back looking for the norm. So I was, for my situation, it's conversation sex.
Before you start, so can we give a bit of what we're discussing? Because it feels like we just jumped out. Like, what are they talking about?
It is. So masculine frame is, we were talking about how grounded you are and how the world occurs, your context, who you are. Frame control, in reference of, like we're talking about now, what I was speaking to, something happens and you feel something. You have the human experience. Like, just because you're a man, you're choosing to lead, choosing to put on the masculine, does not change that. That frame, that world that you're creating around your context, does not get shook or have a human experience. When that does, frame control, you staying in that space and staying grounded versus reactionary, being response able, assessing, figuring how you respond. Any other thoughts?
So what I'm hearing is containment is where we contain the feminine energy of others. Framing is where we contain our own feminine. So if, perfect example is what we were talking about the other day. I don't remember what the context was, but old girl said something. And it took me out of containment. And I immediately went into my own personal upset, which took her out completely of the conversation. Mm-hmm. As opposed to framing my upset, putting that to the side to have the conversation that we were having, and dealing with the upset later, however I dealt with it.
So you went in your feminine with her, and then you lost her when that happened?
I reacted to something she said. It had nothing to do with her. It was all me. But I reacted from an emotional place.
What would you categorize that?
A lack of framing my own energy.
If we were talking about it in terms, you said when you went into your what would you just term that masculine too? Meaning, if we were to split.
No, going into that emotion, the way I did it was very much more feminine energy than masculine energy.
That's what I was wondering. Because you're saying that framing is, the way you're describing it, is containing your own feminine.
Containing your own feminine, right. So we all have feminine energy in us.
So you're saying in that moment, you were containing her, because in that moment you were in your masculine and she did something or said something,
right,
that you're like, screw the
containment. And once I lost my frame,
right,
I lost her containment.
Because now you're operating feminine to feminine.
Right. Exactly.
So no sex happens, and I'm kidding.
Exactly. Exactly. I'll talk to you later. Let's do facts.
But you were saying, did you have anything else to add to that?
No, No, that was it. I was more clarifying what I heard Dwayne saying from the framing, and then tying that to the containment that we talked about last week.
Nah, that was beautiful from a standpoint of I never really considered. I'll explain what I think of in a sec. Similar, but it's just a different analogy. But I never really thought about the distinction between the feminine outside of you and the feminine, meaning the world, and the feminine within, and having two separate terms. So I'll have to. That might be something I have to update in the book. I don't think I made that distinction. I sort of.
You're welcome. I want credit.
Assumed. Yeah. So this bald bearded guy, right. But no, the way I described it was I use a term. So we think about lions, right, and how they operate. Right, there's what we call a territory or their domain. Right, similar, not the exact same thing. And let's say that male lion is the king of said domain, very Lion King sort of thing. And so if he's the king within his domain, that means he has dominion over, or has domination over the boundaries of that turf. And so within that space, what makes it his own are the pillars or principles he puts down. So it's like anybody that enters my domain, there's an expectation of different behaviors, right? So maybe outside of my domain, these things are acceptable, but once you enter and cross that line,
right,
you either align with the principles or you will be kicked out, right? And so the way I look at it is like, okay, if each man's domain, because every man has one, whether he knows it or not, there are two places that it persists in his presence. So when people are in my presence, there's a domain immediately. Both people have domains, and they're clashing, and it's a matter of, do we have cohesion or not? So if me and Lewis are hanging out, we both have our own domains, right? Our own territories in how we expect people to operate in our presence. And so if let's say Lewis doesn't like swearing and I swear all the time, one of us has to budge. I'll either stop swearing or you're going to stop being around me. Right. And so that's what I think people used to think of as framing, right? It's in my frame, but I feel like the distinction of the within versus the without, that would be a without example. So it's within my presence and within my property, right? So it might not necessarily be in my presence, but if you're in my house, I might not be there, but it's my property, and so that's a part of my domain or my territory as well. My principles extend to my property, right? And so that's how I thought about it in terms of women or whatever feminine. Let's use women in particular. The way I look at it is women have their own domain. It's not as pertinent to them, like it's not their core thing, but women have masculine, right? And so when they enter a man's domain or territory, they kind of feel it out and say, okay, what are the principles within here, right? And if he has none, then she'll just put him in her domain, and he submits in hers. And then at that point, he's her bitch, and she has no respect for him. But if she enters a domain where, like, oh, this guy's a king, okay, let me see, right? And she'll challenge your
poking
principles
the walls to see.
Okay, let's see what he'll
where
do.
the holes and cracks
right?
are.
He claims is this and that isn't allowed here. Oh, let's see. And if your reaction is to submit, because I'm going to break your principle. I'm going to see if you're going to uphold your end of the thing. And if you go, her presence is more important than my principles, meaning, because that's the only thing a woman is ever going to threaten a man with. You'll lose my presence, right? Because that's all we got. Like, what else is there? You can't physically harm in most cases, So it's like, if you don't do this, my presence will disappear. And so at that moment, you're in a crossroads of, okay, there's my principles. Is it really that big a deal? Or do I lose the presence of this woman? And every time, without fail, you have to be like, okay, principles are principles. Because the moment you don't, yeah, God is
it's
right.
It's a wedge and a crack,
and it never ends well.
Nope,
that will not end well. Because the moment she does that, it's like, my presence is way too important, and so now he's willing to submit to me. And if you're the one submitting,
he values me more than he values his domain.
more than his principles, his integrity. That's exactly what a principle is. You put that there because you function and operate best when those principles are in place. Not you just randomly put stuff up. So it's like, I'm willing to disrespect myself if it means keeping you. And you're no longer a man at that point. She knows that. You know it if you really wanted to reflect on it. But you're hoping, in the short term she stayed. So, but eventually you realize it's not about whether she stays or not or anything of that nature. It's like, okay, who are you when you're by yourself? And if you continually submit just because it's fear, right? I'm afraid she'll leave. I'm afraid, she continually submit to fear. You're living your life through fear, and she knows that. And all respect is gone, and she'll eventually leave because you're my bitch now, right? I know it, you know it. So that's how I think about the frame or that whole principle is like, okay, everybody has it. There's presence, there's property. And every moment people are coming in with each other, with their own principles. And if they don't coincide, and if a woman sees that your principles are beneficial, she'll submit. But she'll need to test it first to see if you're really about like, okay, you're the real deal. I'm attracted now. Or if she already was, but now they'll say like, that was turned me on. They don't know why. But it's like, wow, you were willing to be a man and remain a man even if that meant losing me. That's arousing because you're being masculine, which is actually what I want, even though I say, well, if you don't do this, I'm going to leave. And they never do, right? So that's essentially what I was saying to Dwayne came to me in an epiphany over the last 2 weeks of experience in life. But that became very clear.
So into that, I hear a lot in what you were saying, and I'm visualizing it, and not just from a male-female dynamic, but from a huge social dynamic, where you have everybody has their, to simplify it, let's call it personal space. I walk into your house. I'm in your house right now.
Right.
Say you had a woman here.
Right.
I could, just like a woman pushes the boundaries of your thing.
Of course.
If I don't respect you, I can push the boundaries of it. Well, like, okay, that's his woman, but I bet you I can take her. Let me see how far I can flirt with her or push her. Or, what I can do to actually take over his domain.
Correct.
That happens every day on a social level between men. I would say the men that push that structure, the type of man who would come in and say, okay, yeah, I'm more of a man than you, I'm going to prove it, is not a man, but neither is the man I'm using, not a man loosely.
Right, I know what you mean.
And neither is the person who allowed him in the space. But
allowed him to
take over his space.
Okay.
Neither one of them is exhibiting masculine energy or real manhood. Both of them are operating from fear and insecurity. They're operating from their feminine. The one is submitting and the other is pushing. They're pushing the edges of the container under the guise of asserting their masculinity. But I would say that, neither one of them has a true idea of who they are as a man yet.
So would you say that because when I hear that, I'm like, well, I'd say one is masculine, but I wouldn't say he's a man. Like when you said the manhood distinction versus...
Okay, that's fair. I mean? That's fair. There is a difference between being a man and being masculine. So...
I think the guy who submits is more of a bitch. It's not
the guy who submits is definitely more into his feminine energy.
Right, I'd say, he's weak.
The guy who asserts is definitely more into his masculine energy.
Yeah.
Neither one of them is balanced.
I wouldn't call them men I'd respect. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't, because that's just being a bully.
Right. Neither one of them is acting as a man.
No, I wouldn't.
Neither one of them is acting
like
as
a real man. No, I wouldn't put that label on it. Because the way I define real men are traits that other men want to emulate. And I don't think most men would see that and go, "Oh man, you're so cool because you picked on somebody you know you." Because there's the thing. Because if it was somebody you weren't sure, if I push this, there are consequences that I might not be able to deal with. Then you're just a bully. You're not a real.
The reality is, if I came into your household and tried to flirt with your woman, there'd be a whole ass problem.
Right.
Because that's not who you are. What you would allow. Right. Period. I don't care who it was that came in here. Most men could not allow that. Right. Anyone who does, that man who submitted, it killed something inside of him.
100%. If it wasn't even there to begin with. I mean,
it was probably killed before it got to that point. But at some point, he felt it die.
if some other man comes in your house and your woman is overtly flirting with him in front of you, that tells you everything. She knew that was never his domain to begin with.
It was never his domain. It was her domain.
Right. I'm going to show you. I wonder how that plays into the cuckold dynamic, but that's a whole different. I never really thought about. That's an interesting one, but I'll derail from the topic at hand.
That whole language of cuckold and simps and all of that—that's all weird to me.
Well, meaning like the actual man watching his wife gets like that thing.
Oh, that thing. Yeah. Okay, no, never mind. That's not what I was saying.
But it made me, when you said that, it made me think like, I wonder how that, like, what the hell is going on and all that. But that's a whole.
I would really like to know the psychology of that too, because I'm all about everybody having whatever kink they have, whatever turns them on. There's a psychology behind everybody's 100%. Kink, though. And why does it turn you on to watch your girl get fucked by another dude? Like, why does that turn you on?
Isn't it the same to be punished? Like, to be physically stepping on nuts, walking on the back?
Oh, yeah. I remember I was once about this. The dude was literally walking around public space on a leash with his girl. Mm-hmm. Well, he was on the leash. And I'm like, just no.
On so many levels, no.
Respect your kink, but no.
So many levels, no. Right. It's hard to say.
But going back to the feminine masculine energy, we have this conversation. We're speaking grown man shit from a man's perspective, who we are. There's balance in that relationship of the girl walking the door, the guy, because she has the masculine, at least in that area of their life. She's the masculine and he's the feminine. And it's an energetic thing, not necessarily a biological thing.
Absolutely.
You know, and if that works for them, that works for them.
Absolutely energetic.
What do you... So in exercising your frame, maintaining your frame, my question...
You mean Lewis's definition, or are you just using it in the general sense?
Well, would you say there's different views? Do we have different perspectives on what frame is? Masculine frame.
So here's what I hear. I feel like we have the same definition. I think we're looking at different areas of what we frame. I was looking very much on a myopic, this is my frame in the world of personal space. Mm-hmm. You were looking at it on a more of a macro level where somebody enters your domain. Like you have an area that's yours. So you still have your personal space, but you're speaking on a macro level of what people can actually walk into.
Well, yeah, from an external, because presence is micro, right? If you come into that's not necessarily
right.
I didn't address the dynamic of the internal, the dominion over yourself. I speak on it in the book, but I never split them in this is frame and this is domain or containment.
That's actually. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's what I was wondering, if you were, when you said your frame, are you referencing framing how you were using it before Lewis made that distinction, or you mentioned it in terms of like
framing in context of your internal frame? And I would say it actually comes from an energetic perspective of understanding when emotions or things, anything, both internal and external, comes up. The frame that you internally occupy, which that cascades down to direct, how you're leading, influencing women, children, whatever, your frame first. And inside of that space, to where I was talking about the exercising of it, staying grounded, no matter how you're emotionally feeling, what I find is like a catalyst space, especially speaking to feminine partner, because that gives the daily growth areas and tests, the mirror. You get to look at yourself in life, and to where you pointed, the feminine of life circumstances are a space of feminine as well. To that, what I saw is dancing in the context of actually challenging and taking a look of asking why, and either finding my place to double down to what does work, why I'm doing it, or at least just holding tight when the conversations and the energy I'm feeling are, I'm not liking this isn't working. Like you said, you can shuffle around, but wait, let me stop and just being still. That grounding up, not needing to act or doing. And in partnership, what I've seen, same way you said to that, God following the lead. And I think that's so powerful. God here on earth, like in the flesh, because you are, in your words, locally, what she's following to, creating the world she steps into, principles, values, morals, children, legacy, whatever. And to that, if what I see is that when I stay grounded energetically, what I'm looking for to be restored, or I'm looking for the softness to come back around, I'm looking for this response. When I stay grounded to not, I need to change, react, or I'm not getting that. That's a reaction to, and not being able to response able to the situation, the feminine, internal or external. So that's the context when I speak to the masculine frame, maintaining, like it's basically the place it first starts. You know, if you're the director, you are literally in that way creating the world with your vision, your forecast, your context, point of view, words, language, energy first and foremost. And when it gets tested internally, you feel in the feels, holding to that, containing all that first internally, and how you respond.
So you're referencing, you've already used the same word, self-dominion, like self. Okay, meaning the domain of within.
Yeah.
And so the question was what exactly?
I find it to be a catalyst when you have the choice of how to respond to getting in the fields and your dominion, your frame is tested. There's, the external challenge. Oh yeah, you feel that way? Cool.
Right.
I'm not shaken. I'm not bothered. And times where it is, I am feeling a certain type of way. Something is having me respond, or I don't like something. That choice to where I would normally default a reaction. Let me stop, ground, be peaceful, and choose how I respond.
So the question is what causes the choice, like what causes a decision between one or the other? Do I react? And I don't know if it's ever good to react, but what causes me not to want to react? Well, it's interesting. I'm grateful for this combo because it's like everything you guys is validation. I'm excited for y'all to read the book because it's like everything you're talking about is like a chapter. And I'm like, oh shit, it's chapter 5.
It's true.
But just like how we have, when I uncovered, just like how we have, we see called the feminine of life, right? Your car tire you got pulled over, or whatever unexpected things that we can't control that try to make us waver, right? And we have to continue, whatever, be your woman, whatever. It's like, man, I was having a good day, and now we're arguing about macaroni and cheese, right? Like, what the hell? You have to deal with that and remain centered. Within, I found we have the equivalent of 3 selves, at least that's which is base. So they say base Vidal, which is your biological desires and impulses. So my desire right now, I'm sitting here, I'm like, I feel for a donut, or I want some water, or I need to pee, I need to take a shit. Like, okay, good. And so that aspect of a man is trying to dominate his focus, right? And then there's the second man, who's I call the social self, which is who am I, what's my identity within my circle. So let's say I'm in class and my identity within that particular setting is student. So I don't get up in front of everybody and start talking over the teacher, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody would look at you strangely because it's like, what's wrong with this guy? Because it's understood you're not the teacher.
Your role is predefined.
Right. And so when you go outside that, there's like a offness and negative emotion that you may feel, whether it be from people going like, get the fuck off the stage, dude. And they're getting that rejection. You're like, oh, that hurts, which is what kind of keeps us in line in that term, right? We don't like being ostracized. So that keeps us, so that self focuses on social acceptance. Whether we believe it or we think we're so immune to people think, really. Right, get cut off from everywhere ever, and see how quickly you align yourself. Yeah. Right, so there's always a balance between like the base man, which is just the animal self, the social man, which also involves your self-image. Right, so it's not just who do I want people to think I am. It's also who do I actually think I am. Right, I want people to view me as confident, or I want people to view me as charismatic, or I want people to view me as funny. Whether you're actually those things will depend on how people react. Exactly. I may think I'm the funniest guy ever and nobody ever laughs when I talk. So it's like, that's delusion, right? And so I need people to laugh to confirm my self-image, And so that's
so you're constantly looking for your audience that laughs at you.
Right. Oh, to
react.
Okay, I am who I think I am.
To validate you.
From a social standpoint.
To that, I have to slice in a question. If we come back later to it, that's fine. But sure. I've had it ping up before. To that, what is the level of masculine delusion and like assertion? I personally have a view of I am the MVP. This is my movie and story. So I'm going to filter. Oh, you thinking this? You think I'm the shit like that? So what level of that? Where's the line of delusion to creating and manifesting a lot, whatever you want to call it? Power of positive thinking.
I don't know if you got there yet, but I thought you were going to go. Well, let me hear what your third one is, and then I'll ask where you're going.
So the third one is I have yet to get a real definitive term, but I just call it the spirit or the spiritual man, which is the version of you that has the mission in life and high aspirations and goals.
Okay. Ain't got time for no bitches. Ain't got no time for no bitches.
Right. That version, right? And so these three are always within all the time. You're always base. I want some pussy. I want some
immediate gratification.
Where the hoes at? Like that first level.
Right. Some men that dominates them predominantly. You can tell which ones are. You can tell this is a base dude. Impulse. Right now, give me the weed, give me the drugs, give me the pussy, anything for carnal pleasure. For pleasure. This is a pleasure man. Social man is anything to make me remain liked and accepted. So this is the socially driven man. You can tell.
I want to look good no matter what.
So the pastor, like, people would fall into this guy. Anything that makes other people believe I'm a particular type of person, right? Regardless of what's going on,
whether it's real or not. But as long as people believe
that's their core motivation and drive. And then you have the spiritual man, which is like these to an extreme sense would be like, oh, what is pussy, man? Is it really this? Right. Or
we are all one. We are all one with it anyway.
Right, like with this social, we are all one. We don't need to. And so, from my understanding, they all need to be integrated. And when they're extreme in one direction or the other, it always, because people would assume, well, isn't the spiritual self? Well, if you're not showering, you know what I mean? Like, you can only be so spiritual if you're by yourself.
If you're sleeping with the choir boys.
Right. Like, I would never put that in the spiritual self. But they'll make claim to it. But, so, because it took a lot of reflection. I've been writing this thing for 3 years. And it took a lot of reading and reflecting and deciphering so many different works. And then it's like, okay, there seemed to be a triad of some kind. And so at every moment, even right now, Lewis is being driven by one of them more than the other, or all of us are. You know, like
I of course am descended.
right. Well, I'm here like, damn. I think I have 2 coming over tomorrow. But nah. So so from my understanding now, going back to the framing and the internal, because of that, it's like, okay, in every moment, all of them are trying to. I know I'm supposed to be going after my purpose, but I want to fuck this chick over here that's trying to. But I don't want my church brothers to know that I'm sinning. You know, like, and they're. Or I have a social role of husband, father, but I don't really want to fuck this stripper. But I'm supposed to be a man of integrity, and it's like all of them are conflicting. And what I found seems to be a North Star, and why mission, purpose, and those things seem to matter so much is, from a masculine standpoint, it seems where masculine is growth, expansion, pushing the boundaries, discomfort. And it's impossible to grow without discomfort, because comfort by definition is remaining in the same vicinity, right? So the opposite would be pushing the boundaries. If you think about what men have traditionally done, it's always trying to expand their territory, right? Which requires pushing up against unknown territory and trying to take it over, take it like expansion. And I'm like, okay, if that's the case, it seems like men are mission driven by design. Like masculine is always seeking to conquer new terrain. And if you look at what your purpose or mission is, it's by definition trying to go where you've never been and conquering it. Whether it be, well, I want to see this change in the world. You want to see change because the change isn't there yet. So you think you're, as the man in your leadership, I'm going to change, I'm going to conquer what's currently here and make it into how I think would be better. Right, and so that mission seems to be what determines, am I going to react to respond, right? Like, am I going to do base of it all here? Am I going to do social? Am I going to, or how do I balance all of them? It's like, how does this align with my mission in this moment? And so that's the North Star I found seems to be like the one. It's like, okay, because you need all 3, like all of them are required. But if you live too much in spiritual and you have no social alliances, you can't make the moves, whether politically, you don't have the social skills, you don't shower, nobody wants to be around you, or you're just too impulsive to where there's none of the other things, you don't know how to navigate, you're trying to fuck your friend's wife, like it's too, because she has a fat ass, I don't care about the social bonds. And if you're too conforming, then you'll never push the boundaries enough because you're too worried about whether or not those kinds are a lot to do things in the dark and then hide it in public, because it's like all that matters is how people perceive me. So I don't give a damn if I'm carnal in the background, as long as people think I'm this way, then right. And so that's my understanding. It's all about what his core mission is, and if he doesn't have any, we have the epidemic we have now of just usually the base man. Yeah, usually like the base desires dominate. If you just, if you're impulsive, you have no reason you have no North Star. Okay, why not do this now? Why not take this Molly? Why not? They're like, it's all about pleasure. As long as I don't get ostracized and people don't, you know what I mean?
Work a job.
Yeah.
Pay my living.
Right.
Bare minimum.
Just to pleasure myself for the remainder of my life.
Here's where I hear the balance at your North Star. All 3, as like you said, work together ideally. What ties them together, in my opinion, is your personal code, which is what you're working toward. Like, how I choose to live my life, where my honor is, where my integrity is, what have I given my word to who I am?
What drives that, though?
I don't.
Why stick to it?
Because we're men.
That's not true. There are plenty of men that don't do that.
Oh, there are a lot of men who, I would say most men have a code. It's where they've necessarily created their code from. If their code is purely from the base chakra perspective, the basic, perspective, then yeah, that's where their code is from. Balance comes from when your code actually incorporates all three aspects of it. That's where the balance comes from.
When I hear that, I think what I'm trying to understand is what's the distinction between that and a man having a clear higher purpose beyond himself. Like, what's what's driving the code? I agree in the sense that there is a code or philosophy or a creed, a man's creed, right? But the mission that goes beyond himself, to me, supersedes that. Otherwise, what's keeping him in check? And what is the point of the code? Why stick to it? You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
View to that, which is interesting. My view when it comes to mission, I think it's like the best thing for clarity, things to what you're speaking, like being able to have a frame, being able to filter life. Okay, why this decision, North Star? And I think it's interesting because we have the free will as humans. It's like a wild card to it. So I actually view it more aligned with technology. Mm-hmm. Computer programming, like whatever, we have the free will to actively choose, like the Matrix. I want to load up, this is the program, billionaire, this is the program, Playboy, this is the program, fitness, whatever. Whatever we're taking on in life, we can make that our mission. And there are the big ones that consume you, and then there's just I'm going to speak Spanish, I'm going to go biking, whatever. But yeah, that's interesting. And like it's an overall conversation, because to that you've got the big, you're a genius as to what you've been sharing, the three pivot. I've never considered a context or the levels, base, of the high and the social, and it's so funny to stand in that and look where it is pulled, and there's, like you're saying, the different degrees that it is never not being pulled at. Whether you shower, that's the social contact. Why? And it's so funny because even looking at the base, it explains so much. Coin term that came to mind, Elliot Hulse, I heard degenerate, where I actually got degenerate. This is a generation of degenerates, he said, and I don't agree with a lot of conversations he's having.
There's some out there stuff.
He's got some wisdom inside of things, where he had me look at that word, and I heard it as the perfect status as far as to what you were saying. The base layer is the only thing being taken care of, and there's a little bit more, and what's that little bit more? I can look over in that social realm to see. Have to shower, have to provide, like the base of what I need to do to be accepted, act like a man to some regard, work a job, pay for myself, live by myself, be able to get a woman. Like beyond those contexts, just dancing in the base level, you can bounce between those two at any given point. And this higher needs, like that's not even something that's still looked at like entrepreneurship. And even entrepreneurship, if you don't have a mission, which is usually unlikely, if there's no context of exchanging value and you don't have a mission, that's still not it. But purely having a purpose, which goes beyond, once you have abundance of finance and all that, it's purely the thrive of what you want to change, impact, create out in the world, your mission.
You said something important, and maybe that's why it resonated differently with Lewis. I didn't clarify what exactly the mission is, but the way I define it is some aim or outcome that you pursue that either increases pleasure is not the word, increases the positive emotions of people you care about or humanity, or decreases their suffering. So it's something that is not self-serving, which is the balance, right? It's like, okay, well, I'd like to just do this thing right now, but this thing. And the reason, because like when the question is why do people have those things? What I've observed is that there's two types of positive emotion. There's pleasure or comfort, and then there's fulfillment. Pleasure comes from consumption, but fulfillment only comes from production. And if you cut the production part off, which is the point of a purpose, right? You're producing, you're pushing yourself for other people. When you over-index too much on consumption, you have a life that's you lack fulfillment, and it only comes from serving other people or bettering their lives in some capacity, or You know, whether you're a musician, you could argue it's reducing suffering or bringing joy. You know, you're a doctor, reducing suffering, bringing joy. I make the distinction just because it's not exactly the same, but it's kind of. But once you have that thing that's beyond you, sometimes a dude has a daughter and his whole life changes because now that North Star has been forced into his life. Before he would just be base. And now, boom.
His purpose is his children.
Right.
Oh, nice. That is, yeah.
And that happens
whole
a lot.
shit lines up. It's coming into the picture. Or it's like, dang, I need to man
Your
up.
kids become your purpose. And everything you do moves around that. I can definitely attest to that.
So that's the clarification I wanted to make. Because I do agree with the code thing. The code to me is subservient to, let's say, your kids. It's not like my code goes above my kid. You know what I mean? It's like I'm making the code because of this thing that is greater than me.
I had my code before I had kids.
What was the motivator for having it though?
That's why I've been sitting here. I don't know that I had a motivation to have it.
Interesting.
I just had it. There were certain things that I said, I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to do that.
Is that
Moving toward the kind of man I wanted to be. I don't know that I had a purpose for that. Like I mean, my father was a gentleman. He raised me to be a gentleman. One of my purposes has always been to provide for, take care of women. That's part of my code. If there's a need, if there's a need that she has, I'm going to walk her to her door. I'm going to make sure she gets where she needs to get to safely.
Right.
Whether she's my woman or not my woman, my job is to make sure she gets to where she needs to get to safely. I never wanted to kill things. That shifted somewhat because, I eat meat and I've come to terms with what that is and actually want to have killed things to eat them.
Right.
But even that falls into my code of honoring what I kill.
Okay.
And not just wantonly killing it. I don't kill for sport. You kill to eat. And there's honor in that. There's sacrifice in that.
Right.
But that's part of the code I've had for as long as I can remember.
So I'd like to go ahead.
Going back to your initial question,
Yeah.
I don't know that I ever had a purpose other than to attempt to be a good human being.
Fair enough. Why would you want to be a good human being? Why not just do the stuff?
I used to ask myself when I was a kid. I used to have boys who would do whatever they needed to do to get pussy.
Right.
I was never that person. Especially when you're young, if you're willing to do whatever you need to do to get pussy, you get pussy.
Right.
If you're not, you get less of it. So I wanted to be like them. It did not fit with who I was to be like them.
You made me think of something just now. So what it sounds like is that you received through training, the codes were put on you.
Some of them, yeah.
But
some of my father's codes I absolutely rejected.
Right. And it made me think, I'm like, well, initially when I was describing it, it sounded all self-generated, like all the codes and all the...
Right.
But now that I'm thinking about it, if I'm a father, and I've already... Because we were moving through life, we already know, quote unquote, what works, right?
Mm-hmm.
You say good morning when you... Right, these things, that's more of a social code, but it sounds a lot like the codes such as keep your word. Those are less... There's a part social aspect to it, but that's only if you're only keeping your word in public. Like, like let's say, I'm telling you that I'm preaching to you about something, but behind closed doors, I don't do it. Mm-hmm. That's some more public sticking to my code. But there's like oh no, it bothers me specifically, that I'm not doing what I say. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows it's bothering me. Nobody knows that I'm here doing what I said I would do behind closed doors. That's not social. That's the third man or the spiritual self. That integrity or something about being aligned with the truth that eats at us. So I'm wondering if, in your case, say your father, wherever he learned it, it's possible, just like us, possible to know that, okay, for you to navigate the social realm, these are the codes that you go against. Okay, you give more than you take, or you da-da-da.
Right.
There are spiritual codes that you can indoctrinate into somebody and they get the same benefits, which is what I'm hearing. Like, I don't know why, but they work.
Like, I got family, I have generational code from my ancestors. My parents, my grandparents, I can trace back my generational codes. I have codes I got from comic books. I can literally trace where I got these things from.
Right.
With great power comes great responsibility. I mean, it's a cliche, but it's part of my code. The only thing I would point to is I've always believed that if it weren't for women, men would, for all intents and purposes, be living in caves, doing basically nothing. The code, all of man's progress, male's progress in history has been to pursue, keep, or protect a woman, or impress a woman.
I can see that being a competitiveness is, let's say that you're because women are fascinated. We had the conversation about mystery or the going into the unknown and pulling back. So if Dwayne goes, let's say we're all here, there are 3 women, we all get 1 each, they're all equally satisfied. Dwayne goes into the wilderness, comes back with some new shit. You know, and they're like, ooh, what is that? And Dwayne's like, doing his cave talk, right?
Yeah, right.
And they're all like, oh my God, that's so cool. We're here like, what?
Right.
Where did Denise go? Right? Dwayne going back to the cave with all 3 of them. So what do you think me and Lewis are going to go? So we're like, yo, we need to bring some shit back pronto. And then that cycle for everything always, because women always are responding to the most valuable.
The most valuable man.
Right.
Now, to that point, historically, we were very much like lions, where there was one man to a pride. One man had all the women, and the other men were subservient to that man, and he had all the women. He was the king because he could beat everybody's ass individually. Villages came about as a community of, hey, yo, this dude keep taking my woman. I want that one. You want that one. I know you do. How about we get together, get a bunch of the boys together. We'll go build a wall. We'll put our stuff together. We'll build our little village. If he come over there, all of us jump him together as opposed to fighting him one-on-one. That's where the idea of a village came from, and that first segment of community. You know, basically to kick Dwayne's ass.
How about we hit him with a rock and take the women?
Weapons and shit.
But then you would be the king. And you would become Dwayne. And I'd have to...
We have to hold the rock together.
Right. We basically hold the rock together.
Look,
I was like, how about you get that one and I get this one and we can only have one.
We both hit them. Right? Y'all see this? Okay. So who's going to take the third one? And now we have Lewis is trying to hit me with a rock.
She becomes subservient to the other 2 women.
That's crazy how in having the discussion, like levels of analysis that I've never explained any of this. I just was writing it to myself.
Right.
And so I was actually really pleased when you're like, I can picture it. Which is the point. Like, I'm hoping that it's
right
envisionable, because with words, you don't get real understanding unless you can picture something. But you learn through pictures or vision.
Men are visual creatures.
Right? So it's like, Like I was just saying that I really liked that. And then the internal external frame. That's so my question to y'all would be, what would your, because I feel like I've been doing a lot of the talking, what is the how do y'all navigate, okay, am I gonna react? Well, again, I don't know if it's ever good to react, but what is that locus of control that you use? Why did you, maybe not why, but with that woman, you lost your frame for a sec. What causes you to say, oh shit, I'm out of frame, I want to
Always
come back?
ego.
No. What made you come back? Meaning, like, because you could have just been like, fuck you, bitch, and then just stayed in that. But you came back to frame.
Because I move mostly in masculine.
Why? What made you come back? Is it the
It's
thing?
everything is rubber band. Time, space, people. We come off of our track. We go back to our natural track. We can be pulled off our track. We can walk off our natural track. But eventually we're going to come back to it.
What do you mean by natural?
So
We had that conversation that week.
So here's an example. I want this woman. She wants a man who goes to church. I'm going to go to church just to get this woman. I like this woman. I'm going to keep going to church because she wants me to go to church.
Mm-hmm.
If that's not who I am and I don't believe that, I can't do that, eventually I might miss a week and then miss a few weeks. And then all of a sudden I'm not going to church.
Right.
Because that's not who I am. I'm back to my natural self.
Okay.
You can't become something for somebody else. I can't. My natural state is not to be angry.
So men who have no locus control, you think that's their natural state, or is it something they haven't developed?
There are men who are absolutely their natural. Hell, when I was younger, it was my natural state to be angry. I was more angry often than not.
Well, is that something because of your lack of development versus your natural? Like, nature to me is like can't ever change. To me, that just sounds like you weren't mature.
See, I don't know that anything can't change.
Nature, if something's nature, is unchangeable. That's why, like, water is water. Period.
Water is water, but water is constantly changing.
But it's never not water. Truth is the nature of something. It's the essence of it at the most fundamental
So, from that
level.
perspective, I don't know that emotionally human beings are ever static.
We're not talking emotions are feminine. Feminine is always changing. We're talking about, you're saying you go back to your masculine. So masculine, by energy standpoint, is the aspect of you is forthright and unwavering. But we also have our feminine, which is...
It is now, but it wasn't always.
What?
Masculine.
What you mean?
It took me a while to find the balance of where I needed to be.
Meaning you learn how to contain your feminine.
I learned how to put a frame on it.
Right. So that's what I'm asking, is that because of...
But because I put a frame on it, by that definition, who I am is not static. Who I am in relationship to that is not static.
Oh,
the
that's
balance
not really
I have between my masculine and feminine, what I'm giving,
yeah.
which tiger I'm feeding, has shifted over time.
Absolutely. What I'm saying is not who you are. I'm talking about so you're like, I went out the path, but then I snapped back. So I'm wondering where the snapback would have been. Now I'm back in frame. Like, I'm back in quote unquote control. So I'm saying is that what makes you come back and you said that's your nature. So if it's your nature, that means that you've always been
Then
that way.
forget that. It's not nature. It's choice.
Okay, I was wondering.
It's a choice.
Okay. And so do you think men who aren't that just haven't learned how to develop how to...
To make that choice, you have to be secure enough in who you are to say, I was wrong. I didn't just come back to masculine and say, okay, here I am. I came back and had a conversation with her.
You said the dreaded words, I'm wrong?
No, I said the dreaded words, I'm sorry.
Even worse.
I'm like, my bad, I didn't mean da-da-da-da-da. It wasn't about you, it was about, I actually was vulnerable enough to say, look, this is where I was coming from.
Is that
and it wasn't about you.
Is that a real conversation?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, meaning if you were playing?
Saying I'm sorry or apologizing.
Oh, no. I'm just fucking around. Yeah.
Curious.
You're saying you should never say you're sorry? Is that
I'm
the
curious.
question?
Is that a conversation?
Not for me.
I have an intentionality in language unless there's a transgression directly. I'll take responsibility in communication. I don't go straight like something bad happened or somebody feels a certain way. I'm sorry about that or the insulting like I'm sorry you feel that way. I'll take responsibility. I can see where I did this and
So you have a conversation around that.
I'm not against it.
I thought you were thinking that's where we were.
I'm curious. Like, is
waiting the whole time. The one projected. It's like, okay.
I think my default is not to say I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. I will take responsibility. Mm-hmm. It takes something from me. I don't think I said I was sorry in that conversation. Mm-hmm. I think it was more of I took responsibility for my actions. I cleaned up those actions. I had a conversation with her about where it was coming from and that it wasn't a reaction to her. Mm-hmm. It was a reaction to me and my history and my conversations.
I remember a particular situation where I, without getting into all of the story, but essentially, I went against my word. So it was like, there's a situation with a woman I was with, and we weren't together anymore. And we made an agreement that, it's this couch right here, made an agreement that, we were cohabitating and whatnot. It's funny, I'm like thinking as I'm telling the story, well, I guess whoever sees this will know exactly who I'm talking about.
You!
But, not even her, meaning just like those who know me know. I mean, they don't could be one person, right? Cohabitating, like you only live with, right? So, whatever. I've shared this story with everyone who knows me anyway, so it's not like I'm ashamed of it. I was at the time. Long story short, made an agreement, I can have whoever you want, whatever, because we were gonna split ways, but police was. So I was like, okay, cool, boom, 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 vice versa. But at the time, it was her couch. I bought it off her. But at the time, technically, it was still hers. And the agreement was like, yeah, because it was somewhere she was at a lot. We were still cool and all that. It's like, yeah, just please don't, sleep with anybody on the couch, right? And I slept with somebody on the couch. Not with the malicious intent. Mm-hmm. I was just being selfish and inconsiderate. I wasn't even thinking about it.
Right.
And what made it worse was that, and this was really against my my code, right? What made it worse, and this had to be God, because I don't know how the hell. So I guess the girl left some marks and on the couch, and the next day she was on the couch. Now she knew she came over, so it wasn't like that was a big deal. She wasn't there, and she came upstairs, and I was like, so she was worked up, like she was about to cry, and I was like, Vidal, did you sleep with that girl on the couch? And immediately my brain went back to I was like, oh, shit. How the fuck this? Because I cleaned it. I'm like, now after the fact, I'm like, shit. But at the same time, I was like, is this worth? Okay, let me sit down and sleep with her. Like, if it was one of them things where it wouldn't impact him, because she was gonna leave within a week or so, we were in our separate ways. I ended up taking it over, and I was like, whatever, right? And so when she came upstairs and was like, I lied initially. I was like, nah, of course not. I never. And as I'm lying, I'm conscious of the fact that I'm lying, because I'm like, you're lying. What the fuck? And then, like, it took hours, because she was she was still worked up, like she didn't believe me. And then when I looked at her at the couch later, I was like, there's like this, the lightest of light on an area of the couch she doesn't even sit. I'm like, how in God's name you conclude that's what that, like, of all the things, you know, like, it was such a, that's why I'm like, because it was a great thing that happened, because it really woke me up.
Learn how to clean up after yourself?
I've learned that lesson for sure. But I mean, my style was never, even the women who know I'm with, I never lie about it. And so it felt like I cheated on her, even though we weren't together anymore. It was the first time I felt like, oh, I don't like this. And the next day, obviously, I confessed and said, you know what? And it was so hard. Not because of the thing I did, because I know there was no malicious intent in it, but because I was so ashamed that I lied. So I was like, you know, I apologize. I'm sorry for the lie. And she's like, yeah, because I mean, we've been together for many years, and you've never. And I'm like thinking, yeah, like, why would it be after we broke up that I'm sorry lying? Like, it makes no sense, right? But I was just so ashamed that I actually broke my word, which is just, if you know me, like, that is, it was like, I know she couldn't believe, like, she thought there's no way, like, you know, so.
That gives me perspective on people in places, like, when they do, one, if they're not about integrity, to that regard, integrity, like telling the truth, lying to people. And like, there's definitely, I feel like, to what you were saying, a code of just being at least a good human being level. Because I can identify with almost parallel the exact same shit. Having a conversation, being asked a question, and in the moment, lying.
Yeah.
And then watching yourself lie.
It was 3 to 5
like,
minutes for me. I couldn't last. I'm like, nah, because I'm aware I'm lying, and then I'm like, this is something that has to be managed. There's a reason I'm not in this. Like, no, I'm coming clean right now. Here it is.
Okay,
that's not the truth. Like, but that feeling of
Was hell.
it was fucking surreal. Like, I'm lying right now. Why am I lying? Shit, I'm lying, but you gotta manage lies.
Right, yeah.
And it was at the point of the most freedom, the most honest, the most truth, where it's like, the fuck am I lying for? Like, actually having me question for myself. Okay, nah, we gotta shake that shit up. Like, a couple of minutes, I'm like, nah, this don't even like. And I was even conscious to, I wonder, feminine into, is she feeling how I'm feeling over here, thinking about I'm fucking lying and shit.
Because now you all in your feelings about the lie.
I'm like, nah, this ain't me. Put it down right now. Let's clean that up. But that's, hearing that tells me there's genuinely a North Star, a moral compass for people that have no sense of, this is not right. That's,
we know.
But there are people who, and I'm not talking about sociopaths who have a imbalanced chemical balance, whatever it is.
Right.
I'm talking about people who have that balance, still have that I don't give a fuck about you mentality.
Until
you know?
they get hurt. Or they just got
Even
hurt.
if they get hurt. Because if they get hurt, they're still going to blame somebody else. It's not about them. It's like, it's not my fault. You hurt me.
hurting people hurt.
Yeah.
Hurting people hurt.
Do you think those people, because unless you're genuinely like as you're saying, I think you can veer so far off the path willingly, and cloud yourself with rationalizations and such.
That you can,
but I don't.
You went back.
Well, yeah, I don't know if you can never. I don't know enough.
Never,
I don't know.
never, but yeah.
I don't. I mean, that's a genuine. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know enough about that because you have some evil people that's come through this world. So you could argue.
I would think that you probably could, but you don't bother because, like you said, the longer you had held on to that lie, the more ashamed you would have been. The less likely you would have been to say it. And
then the rationalizations you had to come up with why.
It's been too long now, or da da da. You would have rationalized it. It's how come people can walk away from their kids. Because at first it's a day or a week or a month, and it's like, I'm going to come back, I'm not. And then 2 years pass, and you're like, I don't want to go back now because I'm shamed.
Right, the shame and guilt. Mm-hmm. That's some other poke of the face as a man, too, because that'll shatter every... And this only goes for those who... Somebody may be listening that is like, damn, I have a convo I need to have.
Well,
Or it could be with yourself. It's always with yourself first, but
have a conversation with yourself first. But yeah,
it's when you said that, I'm like, because it's a motherfucker, and I don't know why mine is so strong in terms of like being out of integrity or even dealing with people who aren't in integrity. Really deeply bugs me. So which is why like I actually had a convo with one of my homeboys today, and I said I was gonna have it with everyone. It's like today I had an experience where I was trying to sell my car, or two, and on Facebook Marketplace, blah blah blah. Dude's like, hey man, can I come see it? Blah, blah. I'm like, all right, let's do it. I had an experience the day before. Dude said he wanted to see it. We agreed to a time. I'm like, all right, I'm available between this and this, but I need a definite time. Dude agrees to 4:30. All right, I can show that. 4:30 comes around. I get the message, hey, can you get a call real quick? I need to know some details. So I'm thinking like, it's 4:30. Why am I getting the text about the details right now? So I'm already like getting hot. My feminine when it comes to time.
that's for your feminine.
That is oh boy, that is a hard one to tame. Like man, 0 to 100.
That actually points to what we were talking about earlier. What took me out? Like my shit took me out. Somebody fucking with your time would take you out. And
very hard to stop that.
Yeah.
We probably push one of your principles of like disrespect or something like when people are disrespecting my time. I mean, I've learned to, but it was bad back in the day. Like, and so I'm thinking, okay, all right. So I shoot him the number because I'm at this point. I'm like, okay, there must be a lesson here because there ain't no way. Calls me up. Can I ask you something? That was his thing. Can I ask you something? So the window's working. Yeah. Can I ask you something? What is it? Can I ask you something? What's the lowest price you'll take? Now I'm on 12. Because now I know he's not here. I mean, I know he's not on the way. And I'm like, so cool. What's your ETA? Now this one is like 4:40 something. He's like, oh, okay, cool. I'll be there shortly, and hangs up. And I'm like, nah, bro. I was literally like, no, man. What is your ETA? Man sends me something that says 5:20, 37 minutes. So I know he's just leaving his house not long ago. I'm like, there's no way this is real life. Like, I cannot relate to that at all.
That's
like,
outside of your friend.
Like, I do not, and the guys I hang around are, so it was a real moment of, less about the whatever, but it's like, this is real? Women will do, women are in their emotional influx. It's not acceptable, but it's a little, and women are who I'm used to dealing with mostly. So when this and then, that's a little different. But grown men, I was like, there's no way until today. Bro, hey man, And now I learned from the last, I was like, okay, this 2:00, all right? And there's a maximum of 10 minutes. After that, I am gone. The deal is off, right? He's like, yeah, I can come. Oh shit! And I was gonna leave the house. I was like, I'm gonna need you to tell me the confirmation before. So this is like 1:40 something. He's like, I can make 2. At 2:00, I was like, by 2:00 or this is done. 1:59, bro, hits me. Oh, I didn't realize it was 2:00. I mean, I didn't realize it was 1 something. When I hit you, meaning it's so what he was gonna do if I showed up, he was just gonna be late or whenever he got there kind of. I'm like, so I'm already like, thank God I didn't go. Learning from the lesson the day before, because I had to drive 20 minutes to the car, and so I'm like, all right, man. So he's like, can we do 4? He's like 4. I'm like, text me again like, what's the VIN number? I'm like, what? Well, first day I was like, what, the VIN? I've never had a VIN number question. And I'm like, I don't have the VIN number in the middle of my hand, bro. Like, that's not something I have on hand just randomly. But, like when you see the car, because the actual document have that stuff. So I'm like, all right. 4:00 comes. I drive over there. It's a 40-minute detour in my day, minimum, right? just in the car, not
Just
to mention
driving
all
back.
of it. Get there, it's not there. 4:10 comes around, I start getting in my car. And did you know the dude, up until when y'all came here at 7, the dude never said anything else. So not only did he not show,
He
never
say
even said
cleaned it
anything.
up.
And I'm like, there is no dudes are really out here just moving like like I don't even know what word to put in what category of. It's definitely not a man. Like it's, and these are like dudes are like 40 something.
So I'm gonna put this out there from a social perspective.
Yeah.
We have become an extremely myopic and selfish species in Western culture, especially, where it's about me and mine. I don't give a fuck about nobody else. Period. It shows up every day. Every day we see a new shooting. It shows up every day. We get somebody doesn't let us in the road or speeds up to cut us off on the road. Like, just don't care about anybody else. We feel like it's all about me and mine, and that's all I care about. So, of course, he didn't care about your time.
He didn't. It's not even my time that bugged me. It did, but it was the bro consciously. It was like that. It's that part. He consciously not only wasted my time, but didn't stick to his own commitment and was at peace. That's
And then
the
went
part.
out of communication and was at peace with it. Was okay with it.
Right. That part tells me way more than the, like you can be a disrespectful, but it's like, no. It's the guys are out there moving like this and they're at peace with themselves. At peace, right? Not actually, they really reflect. Because I know dude's a loser. Like, there's no way you can't be moving
You
like
have
that.
to be. And it's not that he didn't. When I walked in the door, what was the first thing I said to you?
You were apologizing for the time. And yeah.
Because I was late.
Right.
Because who I am was pissed at myself. I had to clean it up with you.
Right.
And I don't take any of this for granted. Too many people do nowadays, though. Too many people don't operate in that space.
Do you think it's because of... Well, my theory is that, let's say go back to the village thing. If Dwayne did that to me, there's nowhere to go. So he has to be held accountable.
Because now we can, yes.
Can't, it's not like...
Yes.
What I've noticed is that the you know the word I'm looking for.
Autonomousness?
It's like anonymity. Anonymity. Yeah.
Oh, anonymity, that one.
Right, there we go. That piece, he knows I'll never likely have to look this man in the eye.
Right. You will never see him again. And even if you did meet him, you don't know who he is.
Right. So he knows he's operating. What's the point of integrity? And that's what I've thought about, because a lot of women operate like this too in the modern era. But again, it's a little bit like, it's not like it's complete lack of holding them accountable, but it's the ghosting, the da 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 da, and I hear it all the time, and I'm like, and I thought about the one
Do
serious
women ghost
relationship.
men too?
Oh yeah, all the time.
I hear so much often that men ghost women. I don't often hear women ghosting men.
Everybody ghosts everybody.
I ain't never been ghosted, so I'm just saying.
Oh yeah, if you get enough numbers, that'll balance the fuck out.
Right.
But depending on how you define ghosting, right?
Right,
If y'all are in like a deep situation, and that's a different. But if you're talking like some girl you're talking to, and
we stopped talking.
yeah, that's. But that's what I mean. Like, I'm not talking about like this is your wife.
I'm not even talking about wife, but it's somebody you're talking to who's like, okay, we were talking every day, and now all of a sudden you're not answering my calls.
Nah.
That's what I was talking about.
I've never had that.
Like, that's ghosting to me.
But I mean more in like this,
the world of, in this world of online dating, everybody, that happens all the time though. You start a conversation, and even if you start talking, and
that's light. That's not even what I'm talking. I'm talking about like just the ghosting combo really was only relevant in terms of if back in the day, if the village is there and she doesn't want to deal with you anymore,
I see what you're saying.
she's not going to randomly. Where's there to disappear to? I
You
have
can't go to
confront
another
you and
village.
say,
You're in the village.
Lois, I don't want you anymore. Right. You have to deal with things.
Yeah.
And now...
And you have to deal with her dating
Right.
Dwayne now because Dwayne's in the village.
Right.
You just are like all over the place again.
Touching everybody. There's a rock. There's a rock when you need one, man. Like,
But everybody's cornflakes.
right. But the way I think about it is like the anonymity is that something about that is tied to the accountability piece. Because if I know I gotta sue you, I can't be a piece of shit. And so the morals are deteriorating only with people they don't think they're going to have to see again. So I don't have to have the I don't have to have the hard convo with
The
you.
protection of I'm in a car by myself. I'm on the internet by myself. And it all, honestly, I believe it all started with the internet. Once the internet came along and you could be an anonymous ass.
Yeah. The worst place on the internet is a motherfucking YouTube comment section. That's it.
Any comment section. Just take a troll through Twitter or Reddit or any of them.
On Twitter, I'm talking about the ones where you know you can't trace. Like YouTube, the reason I use YouTube is because it's just a random motherfucker 25. Right? Like Instagram, you know, there's a profile. People are still pieces of shit on Instagram.
Still pieces of shit.
But imagine if I do not know and have any way to trace back.
You can
You
say,
know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yep.
And bro would never in life say that to your face. Bro is the chicken little wing of like, no, never in life. Probably can't even talk to at the dinner table to like, I mean, like never in life say the type of stuff they say.
Never. Well, what that made me think of, and this is going to put time context on this podcast. You heard about those policemen? What was it in Kansas, Missouri?
Recently.
Yeah, like in the last couple of days, where they were caught talking about wishing they could go back to the days of lynching and joking about all that kind of stuff. You know, the governor, I'm pretty sure it was Missouri, basically called for their resignation, but they were recorded being racist pieces of shit, you know, because they didn't think anybody was listening.
Of course.
I believe there are so many more
Of course.
empowered pieces of shit in this country that causes those of us that have integrity, that have a moral compass, to be in the minority. I don't even think there's balance anymore. Maybe that's just my cynicism in it all.
Yeah, I'm like, from the two situations on Facebook Marketplace, I'm real cynical right now. Like, I'm like, man, I need to have a convo pronto with, like, cause I'm like, there is no way this is real.
I think it is real. That's the balance to what you're saying. Like if there's no good, bad, right, or wrong, like life is gonna life, and so that's the state of things. Like, and that points to, because everything in the whole world of how bad that is, the experience. I guarantee that guy ain't shit. Like you said, like in his world, he's not shit,
right.
and he's coping with it. That's the self-inflicted is. How do you walk the earth?
Right.
I don't even think that. I think in his world he is shit. I think in his world he thinks he's the shit.
The shit?
Yeah. I think in his world he thinks he's okay.
It makes me think to Dwayne's original question, the one that you remember interjecting. We were talking about hubris and delusion.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
I think people are deluded. I think this guy is deluded, and I guarantee you he thinks he's a good dude.
Whoa, yo, it's crazy. Yo, whoa, man. I fucking deleted it. I deleted the convo. This dude, I check your profile to make sure you're not some nut, or you just made the profile today, right? Like,
Right. I check times too.
right. And so this dude, man, this dude was like a reverend or some shit. Like he was like
his world, he's a good dude.
a bunch of church stuff, and he had I don't know if he has his own, but it was like a bunch of. But we're talking, man. I didn't remember that detail because I get hundreds of the damn thing, so I don't remember. But the dude was a pastor or something, and I'm like, you saying that and going back to the social,
the guy
that didn't even
That
respond.
blew him off.
He's a pastor.
But we're talking about the social The social man. As long as people think I'm this
As
guy.
long as people think he's that guy, nobody's gonna know that he didn't call you back. And even if somebody knows and finds out, he will justify and rationalize it away so that he is not the bad guy in this story. Nobody is the villain in their own story. Nobody.
Toward us, when y'all had that conversation earlier, this example is about what I was thinking. I was saying, because if you're living that lie, that example, what is in the shadows is going to be the outlet of all that's not shaped and molded, and the perfect front. The pastor, what is doing? Michael is vicious, like complete opposite direction, and it shows up just the integrity of somebody. That's very fucking interesting, because that behavior, in my eyes, you're not shit. You have to, and that's an alter ego even, because you're a pastor in real. Well, that's, even in saying that though, a pastor is an ideal. Like, that's a
pastor is an ideal. He's still a man, and for all we know, he's a man who had a moment.
I mean, I'm just.
We don't know.
It happened twice in back to back.
Okay, so he had a couple of moments.
Men are having moments out here. I need to fucking get this shit right.
That's funny.
Like, this shit is not okay. Like these motherfuckers having too many moments out here. Man. Like, this is crazy. But here's why I don't think it was a moment. He had all the time to tell me he wasn't going to show, and I left the chat open specifically for like 2-3 or more hours to see. Never said anything. So he knows he had to be somewhere for. Knows he didn't show. He wasn't going to show, and didn't give a fuck. Pastor, whatever the fuck your name was. And it's funny. I looked at it thinking, oh well, this is probably gonna work out because this guy's a pastor. Like, hoping that at least there's some accountability. I'm like, bro, why were you having a whole convo, asking me all these questions, and all right, man, sounds good. It's like, but that's poetic justice, man. There was a fucking pastor. Like, of all, I'm so glad it was, for the sake of the example of what we were discussing earlier.
Yeah.
As long as what people think I'm like,
as long as people look at him in a particular way,
then what happens in the dark, what happens on Facebook stays on Facebook.
I still go back to, you have to have a level of self-awareness to know that that's not who you are.
I'd hope so.
I guarantee you he believes that he is who people see him as.
If that's the case, then we're in an interesting
Most people do.
time.
Most people
You
think
deep
they're
down.
good people. Deep down, most people think they're good people and justify their shit.
You said good intent or good, like they know they did some shitty thing and rationalize.
You have to be self-aware to know you did some shitty thing.
So what do you think his rationalization for that could be? Assuming he's not in an accident or something. Assuming it's just
Something else came up. I'm assuming something else came up. And he was like, I'll reach out. Okay, it doesn't matter. He went from, I'm on my way, to, I need to reach out and tell him, to, it's too late now, it doesn't matter. The same thing about the father and the kids. It's just a shorter period of time because it's a less consequential thing.
on his end, right?
On his
it's
end.
not his time being wasted,
Right.
or energy, right? Very interesting,
Right. And even if he was aware that, okay, I wasted his time, it's like, okay, it's only time.
right?
It doesn't matter. I don't know what he had to do today, but he doesn't know, he doesn't care. Just like we don't know what he was doing today and don't know and don't care.
Which is but what makes me know, and it kind of goes back to how we're talking about how you operate and how that reflects. The reason I know he's a piece of shit is because when you were late, you didn't tell me you're sorry because of me. You partly told you it's more so because of you.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Because let's say I was like, no need to even explain. You'd probably still be like, nah. Because of your own integrity. Because if you
I was on the phone in the car talking to my friend saying, I am such a piece of shit. I don't believe I'm late.
But that's your own.
But that was me.
Right. Regardless of what we were thinking or saying, or whether we were upset or not or whatever, you still would have had to make that right because you have a moral code
Right.
for yourself. Mm-hmm. What it says to me that if even if that was the rationalization, that lets me know that it's not that important to keep my word or to that's not a high value. If it was flipped, beyond whether or not you actually showed or it'd be more from a standpoint of I need to tell this person for my own sake, not for somebody else's sake.
Here's a hypothetical, and I agree with you. Here's a hypothetical. I'm a pastor. I have all these people I do good things for with all week long. I give and give and give and give and give and give.
Mm-hmm.
I fucked you over. I messed with your time. I don't even have it like I fucked you over. I messed with your time. I messed up your time. But it doesn't matter because I do all this other good stuff. So I can forget about what I've done, what I did for you, because in my mind, okay, it's insignificant. I didn't buy the car.
Could you say that somebody it's not about buying the car.
I understand. From my perspective, it's like, I didn't buy the car, you thought I was going to buy the car. I didn't show up, you thought I was going to show up. For you, it's time. For me, it's obviously not time. I mean, pastors have no sense of time. Have you sat through a sermon? So, for me as the pastor, it's just a thing I did. If I have the opportunity, I'll clean it up. I'll say a prayer or a Hail Mary or whatever. And we good. You know?
I've sinned, and it's one of those things that I think woke me up to the reality that, and truth be told, and this is something I've thought about, there seems to be, and I've not wrap my mind around how this would work, because it almost makes it sound like being or the laws of the universe do go against us in some capacity, but do you know what the normal distribution is? Or, people say, 10% of the people tend to produce or 20% produce 80% of the results, and it tends to map out no matter where you go. If it's something that is free will be damned, is always there, and there's a law underneath. So it's like, okay, if all people were operating under free will, why does the same distribution always show up? Like, if it's pure randomness, like whether Dwayne actually does this thing or not, it's always the same ratio. So it's like, I wonder if, and let's say we're in the 20%, is there some force that actually tries to keep that alignment in place of 80-20, and we're all fighting to be in the 20, but there's a genuine force to go against the thing, because it's like, we're sitting here going, there's an 80%? You know what I mean? Like, what? Like, because we never deal with 80% in our personal lives. But there's a massive group of 80%, and we're in echo chambers of people who are about shit and have integrity, or otherwise they wouldn't be around us. So it's like, we never have to consider what other people are like in any real sense until you encounter glimpses of it. You're like, nah. It really felt like it is not somebody listening, like, you didn't know people were like, I mean, like, legit, I never experienced stuff like this. So I'm like, but why does it not bother him? Like, what? I'm really trying to and then it happens twice. I'm like, whoa. In fact, it happened a couple more times. Those guys just didn't even show up. Like, they were like, oh, I'm gonna message you tomorrow, and never, oh man. And this dude messaged me 4 times. Is it available? Yeah, hello. Finally, I see the shit because there's hundreds of them coming in. All right, buddy. Yeah, by 2 tomorrow, I'll message you in the morning. Didn't hear from him all day. So it's not just. I'm like, whoa.
So, I just thought about this.
Yeah.
I was casually looking at grills on
Okay.
Facebook Marketplace, and I hit a couple of things like, "Is it available? Is it available?"
Yeah.
A couple of people responded. I'm not interested this week. I'm going out of town. I'm not trying to buy one this week. It'll be a couple of weeks.
Okay.
I was like, I'll deal with it later. Didn't really respond to them. But, and it didn't even occur to me that until this moment that, back to the world of anonymity, anonymity is on both sides. It did not even occur to me that there was somebody on the other side of that took time and said, oh, I might have a potential buyer. Oh, let me go ahead and tell them that it's available. Let me wait for him to respond. He's still waiting for me to respond. I mean, I'm assuming he's moved on, but you know what I'm saying?
Of course.
It did not even occur to me, in this world of anonymity, it's on both sides. Now, I didn't make an appointment with him.
Right.
But like he had a conversation with you and made an appointment. That's slightly different.
Of course.
But there's still a level of, if I'm starting from, there's nobody on the other end of this.
Right.
The person on the other end of this is not real.
Right.
You know, you're not real. The internet is Schrodinger's cat. It exists and doesn't exist all in one space. I have no idea whether the person is real. I could be catfished at any given level. So my assumption is you don't matter until you matter.
Well, you know what it made me think of, and now this has nothing to do with men. I was like, I can see how, if this is even a fraction of what an attractive woman online's world is like, I can see the bad behavior. Because
absolutely,
when I tell you I was getting so many messages that it wasn't even, like, it wasn't even, I didn't even look at them because there were just so many. All they're saying is it's available. But I mean, I put my phone down right now, probably has 50 since we've been here. I don't know guy's name, oh my god. But if you think about it from the world of an attractive woman online, if that's even relatively close to a DM, like, you know what I mean? I'm like,
yep.
And it got
hit up on Instagram or eHarmony or Twitter or whatever.
You know, Louis is out of I don't know where eHarmony.
Hey, I did a lot of COVID swiping. I ain't mad. I did a lot of COVID swiping.
I'm not mad at you. I just didn't even know eHarmony, like eHarmony reminds me of, like, I feel like I was 10.
So wait, my daughter met her husband on eHarmony.
I'm not doubting it. I just didn't even know that was still in existence. Like, I've never heard.
That happened, I guess, 3 or 4 years ago. They just got married.
That's crazy. You used to see them eHarmony ads. Like, you don't see Tinder ads.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like the market has changed.
The ratchet shit is all here. Tinder
is the ratchet shit.
eHarmony. That was funny. That was funny.
That took you back?
It did. That was like eHarmony. But nah, as you're saying, the anonymity, but that gave me a lens of, holy shit, I can see if it's even a fraction, because we're talking dozens of, if it's even a fraction, it's to the point where, as I was like looking at all of them, I would only click the one that had an interesting opener.
Right.
Like, it was to the point where everybody, I was like, I know this person just going to be like, is it available? What makes me pick him or her over anybody else over here that's saying it's available? So the people were like, I got 1,600, I got 1,700 right now. It's more enticing because there's a difference.
Right.
I'm like, man, who would have thought I'm just trying to sell this shit. Like, and I'm here being a chick about it. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like,
you are the woman. You are being pursued. Well, your car is being pursued.
Right. But the level of, it gives that, like, an attractive woman coming up, 10 dudes, 20 dudes approach her that day. We think about it like, as men, we go, shit, 10 women? I don't care what y'all look like. I'm going to put you in the bag in case I need a recruit. Right? I'm going to sort through the best. But
I got you on her. Okay.
Right. The average guy is assuming it's not a monster. You know, like, the average guy is, she's decent. Okay. We'll figure a position for you.
The average guy,
you will be hired at some point.
The average guy does not get the same response online as the average woman either.
Of course not.
Like, that's women get 50 to 100. I mean, they get inundated.
Not even.
And I don't even know how it works as a model.
That's the type of woman I mean, like a extreme. Not just, even though I think you as like a really cute girl, you can get arguably more. because men feel like you're real or in their reach point versus you see a fucking dime online. The average.
I always assume that if somebody, you know, I get these things on Facebook like, oh, this fine ass woman is like, hey, what you doing? I'm like, all right, bro.
But that's my point. You're not even like, all right, yeah, okay. If you're swiping through and you see there's a first you think, what the fuck is she doing on here? Yeah, that's a
right. Like you know, what I mean? It's like, come on, you're 36, 30, I mean, 28 years old.
Right.
You ain't chasing me.
You could have been on damn. I've been texting.
You could just go to the grocery store and pick up a dude.
So that already is gonna be okay. So I do think like a really cute girl will probably get way more attention online than a legitimate, because people aren't just like, yeah, okay. Even if they respond, yeah, okay, that's not a real person. But it's like, no, I can see her being real, and you see the picture with your
friends, you start a conversation,
blah, blah, blah. And so, but I say that because when you're talking about the average, I think I shared this story. Man, I remember one time, and it turns out I heard that the apps have, and this is somewhat of a derailing, but you'll go back to the Facebook and the abundance convo. I heard that they have like a matching thing, or like let's say the girls that get a lot of attention with like those are the ones that pop up, because if there are a billion people, like how do you know what to sort and who to go?
Right.
Is it pure randomness? I thought it was, or proximity, but it turns out there might be like an element of this person gets a decent amount of swipes. This person gets a decent, match the decents, the highs we will go to. And so a homeboy of mine, I remember this was I won't say why I was on there, but this was I was trying them out, I think the first time, and I'm like, all right, let's see what. And so we ended up meeting up, and I'm like, yeah, it's crazy on here. Look at all the. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, what do you mean, what am I talking about? And so he shows me his. And when I tell you, I was like, there's no way we're even in the same state. Night and day as far as who we saw. I'm like, I literally couldn't believe. I'm like, because I'm looking
on the
for
same
like
app?
Yes. The same area. And I'm like, there's no way. And I'd show him, I'd like, get the fuck out of here, bro. And I'm looking through, and I'm like, how is this possible? I mean, just
the algorithm,
some crazy stuff was on his. You know what I mean? No disrespect. And I'm like, no wonder you guys look at the way I'm looking. No wonder some guys are like, oh, this shit is some bullshit. This shit is a win.
Right.
I'm like, mine look like that. I'd be right with you, like, and so I'm like, oh.
That's what I was telling you about Facebook. I don't do Facebook dating because I have not seen anything decent on Facebook dating ever.
That's so funny.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so I say that to say, like, compared to him, and it's not like it was some busted dude or anything like that, normal dude. Compared to the female version of him,
nah.
I mean, the amount of dicks she get thrown at her is not even close. So it's like, which is why some of them will go like, well, I get 50 guys. Let's see, we're gonna, and like the anonymity, I don't have to reject you directly. I can just leave you under, you know, like, and so.
And the rejecting is so, because it's so anonymous, it becomes more and more shallow. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna talk to you. I had one girl stop chatting with me because I called my mother mommy. I said something. She was a nurse. I said, oh yeah, my mommy's a nurse. And I don't know why I said mommy. I just said mommy. I call my mother whatever comes out of my mouth.
Right.
And she was like, oh, I don't know if I could talk to a man that still calls his mother mommy. And I'm like,
I know, I might be on the side.
Okay, if that's where you're gonna draw your line, we good.
I said, mommy. It's like, oh,
that's what you call me. You must be a mommy's boy. I'm like, if that's where you draw your line,
I'm not gonna lie, Louis. Like that does. Like if I were to read that, like if I didn't know anything about you. But mommy says
I understand. I do get it. But here's my thing. is that where you draw a line? Be like, okay, I ain't gonna talk to you no more.
Fair enough.
Like to me, that's okay. Yeah, get it. Have a conversation. Let's move on from that. But if you draw your line there, then you're already way too judgmental for me to talk to any damn
Fair
way.
enough. Was this an older woman? Like, what was some young chick?
She was in her 40s.
Okay, so she's like
She was
seasoned
older.
enough to know, like,
Yeah.
that shouldn't be like, you out here lonely as hell and you tripping about a mommy, right?
Right. And she was. Because I had seen her on there a bunch of times
Of course.
on a bunch of different apps.
Of course, yeah.
In rotation.
Rotation. Don't play it like that now.
The ones that come back and you know why they're still there. Like,
Yeah.
I know you.
Yep. Yep. There was some, during COVID, there was some I was like, okay, yeah, you back again. Okay, I remember you. Oh, I saw you on this other app.
The legendary caption. I'm only on here because some nonsense, some bullshit. In case anybody sees me on here, then here's my explanation. Like,
Right.
to protect my social.
The ones that get me are the ones who have the long list of things they're not going to tolerate. I'm like, yeah,
You
okay.
need to be 12'9" and you need to make 12 figures and That's interesting. But that's a whole other. I mean, definitely.
Yeah, we can have a whole conversation about dating apps for ages. We need to do a cast on dating apps.
Speaking of dating apps, the master Dwayne Lang, the masculine architect, is gonna be.
You gonna give a master class?
I mean, I think it comes up, man. Especially the conversations that they keep popping up. There's definitely.
It definitely needs to be a master class on it.
Well, I mean, it's something. If you have the initiative in life to just find something out about it, like, or pay attention to what you're getting to the degree that you change and play with, you'll figure it out. It's just a matter of time. And average still shows the fuck up at just not capable at this point. Cause I feel like at least my generation coming up, like 20 years ago, okay, you kind of got to be looking, figure it out. As internet hit saturation, it's like, is there still a question? You have to keep your head under a rock. Like, you don't have to know everything about masculinity. Like, just some awareness of self kind of puts you on the general path, as it occurs to me. And the average, the bare minimum, because it's so comfortable, I think is the bigger conversation. Everybody's not a superstar, even though it's possible. Average, on the masculine side, the men's side, average is like a lowering bar. It just doesn't have anything.
What are you saying? The average? Because I know you're not matching with men. So I'm like, what do you mean?
No, I mean,
I really meant that in a serious way. I was trying to keep a straight face. As I was saying it, I was gonna be like, you're on the wrong app. I was like, let me keep this serious. It took a lot of effort, so Louis started laughing. I'm like, fuck.
I couldn't let that slide without. I couldn't.
The average guys, I'm speaking on behalf of what the men are showing up with, what they know or figure out.
The women are telling you this information?
Yeah, that's
okay.
just in general. And the guys' complaints, like in the market, what guys are having to be instructed on.
Gotcha.
And when I open up and see, it's the reality. I had the experience, like you said, being freshly on the market. All right, let's dust this off and actually put what's out there. Well, shit, I'm going to find the most efficient way. That's what I was saying, to just being a matter of time.
Right.
If you're aware, you're at least going to be looking for yourself, okay, what's working, not working. And to some regard, shit, at the edge of your fingers, you can always get access to the information, so why wouldn't you? And average, that's still an aha moment. So that's what I'm speaking to.
Not the guys you meet online?
That's not.
We should have a gay guy in this conversation, because I think that'd be an interesting perspective. Because here's my question on that. We talk a lot about masculine and feminine. Well, we talk a lot about masculine and feminine energies.
Mm-hmm.
more so even than I think lesbians, they play and dance in that world of masculine, feminine energy. More so than probably anybody else. You know, they'll excuse the pun, swing both ways on that pendulum. You know? And how does that dynamic work in a relationship? I'd love that. I mean, that's just an interesting conversation to me.
Sure. Anybody have any? We're at hour 45. Anybody have any?
10:30 on the nose.
Wrapping up statements? Any
I shouldn't have said the time.
takeaway? as if that matters. People are like, man, it was great until
He said the time and took me out of it. It's only 2
and the
o'clock
guy in the
here.
blue shirt was making grinder jokes. No way, it's like the quality of man. The quality of man has been low. Oh shit!
That was the close there.
I haven't laughed that hard in a minute, man. I'm truly weak. I'm in tears right now.
Shit,
Did the
that's
light
the
just
sign.
go dim?
Yeah, when the lights go out, that's close. You gotta get the fuck.
Is that the subtle cue?
Yeah, you gotta go home. You just
That's
Oh, your
Lord.
lights on a timer?
That's the Lord being like, listen.
That's enough of this. That's enough of this shit.
Good shit. That's episode 3. That's a wrap.
Yeah. Thanks for watching.
Good shit.